This is Rav Meir Shapiro number 3, and now we start to get into his accomplishments, what he did. And this is really a topic which is very beloved to me because I want to analyze, after a few listing off and giving off his accomplishments, maybe in a session or two, and try to understand deeper different attitudes of Gedolei Yisrael towards activism and going against the tide and being revolutionary, and where do we see the different strains coming from. But as it stands, we have to understand this: Rav Meir Shapiro was a tremendous, what we would call an activist, no doubt about it. And specifically saw problems, and he would go against the tide, the rabbinic tide, to fix the problems. From an early age, he was looking about how to make Yisrael better, early 20s. We'll see, he didn't live a long life. We mentioned he was born in 1887, and I think he passed away in 1933. Altogether, he was younger than me when he passed away, which is extremely humbling to probably many of us there, and shows what it could be inspiring, also what a person can accomplish in his 47 years or so. But he was not afraid to go against the tide. And here you see him. Rav Meir Shapiro was a visionary. He was a visionary, but he would also go against the tide and do things that were perceived by other rabbinic rabbis, great rabbis, as revolutionary. Maybe we'll discuss one time. We'll have sessions on the Panovich Rav. We talk about Panovich Rav was another absolute visionary and created Panovich out of nothing. And people saw the Panovich Rav as doing things which were crazy, not shaykh, etc. But there was no basic disagreement with anything that he did, to my knowledge. He wanted to build a yeshiva. That's of course an amazing thing, right? But there wasn't a revolutionary tendency. But in Rav Meir Shapiro, we see something different, right? We'll give some, and he had his nagdus to him, to different things he did, which is important to note. And again, we're going to put into more context as we go to try to talk about different attitudes, legitimate rabbinic attitudes from Gedolim. We'll try to dedicate a session to that. I'm just touching on that now to give some context. Let's talk about that. So he saw that many children, again, were in Poland. This is Galicia, which I believe is kind of southernish, mid-southern Poland. Many kids were leaving the regular cheder system, and they wanted to get an education, right? Haskalah was very, very strong in Europe. We don't realize that, some do know that. And they wanted to get an education would lead to Parnassa, so the regular cheder, which was only Limudei Kodesh, didn't find them. The Chorkova Rebbe, we mentioned before, proposed a bold plan. And he said this: for the Talmidim that were Mesugal, they'll continue in the normal way, only Torah. But for the last year, we're going to create something else called the Cheder Klali, which had two significant changes to the regular Cheder system. One, it had built-in learning of a trade, and two, they would spend more time learning halacha, practical laws, as that was more what these kids needed, as opposed to the brighter, more Hasmadic kids or whatever they would be more involved in pilpul and learning more and more Gemaras, etc. Okay? Now, to us, perhaps it doesn't. Maybe some people there, it sounds crazy. Maybe it doesn't sound crazy. Maybe it sounds obvious. But he went to Chernovitz to get approval from other rabbis of the Rizhin dynasty. If I mentioned before that there was a Rizhin or Yisrael Rizhin, who was, I believe, a Talmud of the Maggid Mezrich, and he had 6 children, and there were many rabbis that came out of that. There's a few generations in, and so he went to his other, cousins, so to speak, and with the others of that tradition, and they also liked the idea. But many from the conservative camp were dead set against it, right? You're changing the Masorah, etc. We can imagine. I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you the history, and the Chorkova Rebbe, in the light of that opposition, shelved this plan. Rav Meir Shapiro was entranced by this idea, right? And he found a place that he was going to do it, in Ternopil, and he raised the money, and there was also a place of less opposition, right? So, for whatever reason. In the end, he had to leave Ternopil, and it didn't come off. But already we see his mindset, a mindset that was willing to make things happen and do what he became, thought he was right. He became a Rav in Galena at 23, 24. Amazing. He was already a Rav in that. And his Rebbe, the Chorkov Rebbe, had predicted this. He predicted he was going to become a Rav. How did he predict he was going to become a Rav? Let's see. that at that time, there were tens of thousands of Cherkov Hasidim, as I mentioned, and he came for Yom Tov, and there are thousands of people there for Yom Tov, and Rav Meir Shapiro got pushed so much, small buildings, tons of Hasidim, lots of push. Rav Meir Shapiro fainted. And the Rebbe said, don't worry, this is a simon, you're going to become a Rav. This is a simon to become a Rav because I fainted? He says, yeah, because in Galicia, the folks are hard on their Rabbanim, so if you got pushed around in Galicia, it's a sign that you're ready to be a Rav. And becoming a Rav, he was metaking all types of pirtzis in the community. And again, the ikar for him was education, and that we're going to talk more about in Rav Meir Shapiro Part 4.